The most dangerous manipulator in your life might be the one everyone feels sorry for. Not the loud one, not the one who slams doors or raises their voice in front of everyone, not the obvious villain you can point to and say, that person is toxic. I'm talking about the one who cries first. The one who always seems to be going through something. The one who, somehow, no matter what happens between you two, ends up being the one who needs comforting. You've met this person. Maybe you're related to them. Maybe you're dating them right now. And if you are, I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes. Because what I'm about to describe doesn't look like abuse. It looks like sadness. It looks like sensitivity. It looks like someone who's just had a hard life. But underneath it, there's a pattern. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Priya. Priya had a friend, let's call her Mira, who she loved dearly. They'd known each other since college. Mira was thoughtful, soft-spoken, always seemed a little fragile. People described her as sensitive. Priya saw herself as Mira's protector. Someone had to look out for her. Here's how it usually went. Priya would get a new job, a good one, something she'd worked toward for years. She'd call Mira, excited, wanting to share the news. And then Mira would go quiet for a second, then say softly, "That's so nice for you. I wish I had that kind of luck. My manager still hasn't even given me a raise. I don't think I'll ever get out of where I..." Just like that, the conversation would shift. Priya's win would quietly dissolve into Mira's pain, and Priya, without even noticing, would spend the next 20 minutes comforting her friend, instead of celebrating her own moment. This happened again and again. A promotion, a new relationship, a trip she'd saved 2 years for. Every single time, Mira found a way to make it about her own suffering. Must be nice. I wish I had what you have. You don't know what it's like to struggle like I do. Small sentences, never a scream, never a slammed door, just a quiet redirection every single time, away from Priya's moment and back onto Mira's pain. And because it never looked like an attack, Priya never had a clean reason to call it one. And here's the part that took Priya years to notice. Mira was also generous with compliments, except they never quite landed as compliments. "You look so pretty today. I wish I could wear something like that, but I'd probably just look fat. I'm so proud of you for finishing your degree. Some of us just aren't smart enough for that, I guess." Every kind word came wrapped around a quiet little blade, and every time Priya tried to push back, gently, carefully, Mira would collapse into hurt. "Wow, I can't believe you'd say that to me. I already feel bad enough about myself." And Priya, kind, empathetic Priya, would immediately backtrack, apologize, comfort, because how could she be the bad guy here? Mira was clearly hurting. Mira was clearly the fragile one in this friendship. Except Priya was the one who kept ending up exhausted. Priya was the one who stopped sharing good news, who started feeling guilty for simply having a good day. It took her almost 8 years to ask herself a question she'd never let herself ask before. Why does being around someone so sensitive leave me feeling so small? What Priya was living with has a name in psychology, though I want to be careful with how I use it today. This isn't a diagnostic checklist for you to run against people in your life. It's a pattern, a way of relating to others, and understanding the pattern is what matters, not slapping a label on someone. Most people, when they hear the word narcissist, picture one specific kind of person, loud, grandiose, needing constant admiration. Psychologists call this overt narcissism, and it's easy to spot because it announces itself. But there's a second version, quieter, harder to see. Psychologists call it covert narcissism, sometimes vulnerable narcissism. Both versions share the same core wound, an unstable sense of self-worth that depends entirely on how others respond to them, but where the overt narcissist manages that wound by demanding admiration. The covert narcissist manages it by demanding sympathy. Same engine, different fuel. Let's break down what that actually looks like, because this is where it gets important. First, chronic victimhood. Not occasional bad luck, not a rough year, which happens to everyone. I mean a permanent state of being wronged. Every job is unfair to them. Every friend eventually disappoints them. Every relationship ends because the other person couldn't handle how deeply they feel things. At first, this reads as bad luck or sensitivity, but watch it over months, over years, and you'll notice something strange. The world is always doing something to them. They are never simply a participant in their own life. They are always its victim. And here's why that matters. Because a person who was always the victim can never be held accountable. If they hurt you, it's because they were hurting first. If they lash out, it's because life has been so hard on them. The suffering becomes a shield, not just for sympathy, for immunity. Second, the backhanded compliment. This one is subtle, and it's designed to be. A backhanded compliment lets someone plant a small wound while technically saying something nice. You're so brave for wearing that. I'm impressed you got that promotion. I always thought they'd give it to someone more experienced. You seem so happy lately. It's a nice change. Each sentence does two things at once. It offers just enough warmth that you can't accuse them of being cruel, and it delivers just enough of a cut that you walk away feeling smaller than you did 5 seconds ago. If you ever call it out, you'll hear some version of, "I was just being honest," or "Why are you so sensitive?" That's not an accident. That's the exit door built into the sentence from the start, so that even naming the cut becomes proof of your own fragility, not theirs. Third, competitive suffering. This is the one Priya lived through the most. You share good news, and somehow it becomes about their pain. You share bad news, and somehow their bad news is worse. You think that's hard? Let me tell you what I've been through. It's a strange kind of competition where the prize is being the one who suffered the most, because that position comes with something valuable: permission. Permission to be difficult, permission to be self-focused, permission to never quite show up for anyone else because they're always the one who needs showing up for. And here's what makes it so hard to walk away from. The suffering isn't even fake. That's the part people get wrong. A lot of the pain is real. The bad manager might be real. The hard childhood might be real. Covert narcissism usually isn't invented sadness. It's real sadness being used as currency, spent again and again until it buys silence, attention, and a permanent exemption from ever being the one who has to apologize. Here's the thing that makes covert narcissism so disorienting, so much harder to name than the loud kind. It borrows the language of vulnerability. It sounds like someone who's hurting. It sounds like someone who needs support. And because most of us were raised to be kind to people who seem hurt, we give it again and again, without ever asking whether the hurt is being used, on some level, as a leash. I want to be very clear about something. Sensitivity is not narcissism. Struggling with self-esteem is not narcissism. Plenty of people who are simply anxious or depressed or grieving will sound like some of what I just described, and they are not manipulating. The difference isn't in a single sentence. It's in the pattern over years, and in one specific question. Does this person's pain ever leave room for yours? If the answer is consistently no, if every conversation, no matter where it starts, ends up back on them, that's the pattern worth paying attention to. So what do you actually do with this? First, and this is the hardest part, you have to give yourself permission to notice the pattern without immediately feeling guilty for noticing it. That guilt is not an accident. It's the whole mechanism working exactly as designed. You're supposed to feel like a bad person for even suspecting that someone who seems so fragile could also be managing you. That guilt is doing the manipulator's job for them, even when they're not in the room. So here's a small practice. The next time someone redirects your good news into their pain, don't react in the moment. Just notice it. Write it down later if you have to. One instance means nothing. 10 instances over 10 months is a pattern. You're not building a case against a person. You're building clarity for yourself. Second, get comfortable with a very short sentence. That sounds hard, and I'm still going to share my good news with you. You don't have to choose between compassion and honesty. You can hold both. You can say, "I'm sorry you're going through something," and also refuse to let your joy get swallowed by someone else's competition for pain. Those two things are allowed to exist in the same sentence. And the first few times you say it out loud, it will feel unnatural, maybe even a little cruel. It isn't. It's just unfamiliar, because you've spent years training yourself to hand over the floor the moment someone else's pain enters the room. Third, when you get a backhanded compliment, you don't need to accuse anyone of anything. You just don't take the bait of over-explaining yourself. "I'm impressed you got that promotion. I thought they'd pick someone more experienced." Doesn't need a defense. It needs a simple "thanks." That's it. Full stop. Don't fill the silence with justification. The discomfort of that silence is information for both of you. Fourth, and maybe the most important one, pay attention to how your other relationships are being talked about. This is a detail people miss constantly. Covert manipulators, over time, will often make small comments about the other people in your life. "Your sister seems kind of harsh. I don't know why your friends don't check in on you. Are you sure that person actually likes you?" It rarely sounds like control. It sounds like concern. Someone looking out for you, gently pointing out things you might have missed. But slowly, quietly, it does something very specific. It makes you doubt the people who are not manipulating. It thins out your world, one small comment at a time, until the person doing the thinning is the only one left standing. And a person with a smaller support network is a person who leans harder on the one relationship that remains. That's not a coincidence. That's the design. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this. Sympathy is one of the most beautiful things human beings are capable of. And that's exactly why it can be turned into a leash, because you'll rarely question a request for compassion. You'll almost never say no to someone who seems like they're hurting. So, here's your shield. Not suspicion of everyone who's struggling. Most people who struggle are simply struggling, and they deserve your kindness without a single asterisk next to it. Your shield is smaller and quieter than that. It's this. Notice when your compassion is only ever flowing in one direction. Notice if your good news has started to feel like something you need to apologize for. Notice if you've quietly stopped calling the people who used to check on you because someone convinced you, gently, sentence by sentence, that they didn't really care. And whatever you do, keep your support system alive. Keep calling your sister. Keep texting the friend who was told somehow that she was harsh. Reach back out to the people you quietly drifted from, and don't be surprised if it feels a little awkward at first. That awkwardness is just distance, not damage. It closes faster than you'd think. A person who wants to manage you completely will always, eventually, try to make you smaller in the world. Not through one big moment, through 1,000 quiet ones. A redirected conversation here, a backhanded compliment there, a small doubt planted about someone who loves you. None of it on its own looks like anything. That's exactly why it works. You are allowed to feel sorry for someone and still refuse to shrink for them. Both things can be true. Hold on to that. I'll see you in the next one.